Alrighty, while we've got a working microphone, we might as well get that follow-up review for Rogue Trader out of the way, because I really need to address something that I said at the end of my Rogue Trader review, in which I said I was really pissed off at my Game Master, and if I had reviewed the campaign that was going on at that moment, I would have said a heck of a lot of bad things about it. But let's amend that, as most of the issues have been resolved and a large amount of them were misunderstandings. So I'm not even going to bring them up really in great detail. I might mention some frustrations as I go over the events of the game sessions. This might be a multi-part video. Who knows how long I'll be rambling. I'm just going to basically be here and just talk about the game campaign, starting off with my character that I'm playing in it, and going over a profile of the crew. Forgive me if I can't recall their names off the top of my head, because of, like a lot of groups, we're a group that mostly refers to each other by our job or our actual names, rather than our character names. We don't get that far into it. And my character in particular usually just calls people by their position on the ship. Like when I'm referring to the arch-militant, the combat guy in the group, I just call him Armsman. It's like, Armsman, I need you to do this, be all formal about it. But anyway, like I said, I'm not going to go into a great detail about the problems I was having. Most of them were fixed. I might, when I hit the story elements as we go through the events of the campaign, I might hit on a few things that were frustrating to me. But most of the issues were either misunderstandings or have been completely cleared up. Some issues were basically some of them were with continuity. For instance, presenting Footfall to us almost as if it was Port Wonder. We went into the situation where, oh no, not Port Wonder, but, oh no, Footfall has been taken over by criminals, and was formerly under the control of the Adeptus Arbites, which are like the FBI. When actually Footfall has always been under the control of criminal gangs and was never under the control of the Adeptus Arbites. And presenting the Adeptus Arbites as local law enforcement when they're not actually local law enforcement at all. They're more like the FBI, combined with a SWAT team kind of dealie. They do lay down the law sometimes, like stop riots and shit, but they're not the local law enforcement. They just support the local law enforcement. But anyway, that was amended by the fact that the DM was actually running a lore light game. And yeah, sure, he's like, oh, you can't play the Rogue Trader because the Rogue Trader has to really know the lore and really know how the game works to make the proper decisions. And right off the bat, just then and there. And then he doesn't present the lore in 100% accuracy. There's some frustration to be had there. It was to the point where the more I do the research he says I should do so I could do my job as the Rogue Trader well, the more it seemed like he wasn't doing the same. Because he was making all these continuity errors and, lore mistakes. But it was a lore light game, and it was just a misunderstanding. And the more we become familiar with the lore, the more he moves, with consistency in the lore. So that's okay. I can understand his motivations for making a lore light game. But if he was going to do something like that, he should have at least made it, instead of Footfall, have it some other space station. Heck, it could have made it Port Wonder. Although Port Wonder is a lot larger, so that would bring in its own issues to bear. But anyway, I'm rambling. It's been nearly 5 minutes. Let's quickly go into a look at the characters in the game. I am actually playing the Rogue Trader, which is, as I may have said in the review, the captain of the ship, and the guy who has the warrant of trade, which is necessary to legally captain a ship in that universe. We also have my friend Sean playing as the arch-militant, which is the combat guy. As I explained before, I don't remember their names right off the bat, but I think the arch-militant's name is Cybus, or something like that. I might correct that in a future video. We also have a Astropath Transcendent, which is a majorly kind of psychic power user. He's telepathy focused, and since he's telepathy, he doesn't have the mind control stuff later that he'll be getting later, but he has telepathy as his specialty. Pardon the stuttering. We also have a Voidmaster, the pilot type, who's all gunslingy and stuff. And that's basically our crew. We have Sigmund, who is a explorator as an NPC character. We also have Fortunus, who is a missionary, who's our medic for the ship. When he's not in there, our arch-militant has Medicaid trained. He's not fabulous at it, but it's better than not having one with us if we don't have Fortunus with us. We also have a navigator whose name unfortunately escapes me. But anyway, on to more detail about my character. I actually know my character's name, of course. His name is Rolland Jarrion. He was born on a forge world, which, a forge world is a high-tech factory or research world normally run by a machine-worshipping cult called the Machine Cult of Mars, where they're usually stationed. Forge worlds can be factory planets that do research and high-tech stuff, or they can be like space stations or satellites, but they're usually run by the Machine Cult of Mars. It's what differentiates themselves, along with the fact that they're more high-tech and not quite as populated. That's what separates them from hive worlds. Anyway, they still pay homage to the God Emperor like the rest of the Imperium, but they revere the Machine God a little more devoutly. Roland's mother was part of the Machine Cult, one of the less extreme but no less devoted, who believed in a slightly different take on the cybernetic perfection that most other cultists hold as their primary belief, rather than using cybernetics right away. She believed strongly that one should not just throw away their natural body and take a shortcut. Instead, the path to closeness with the Machine God should be earned, much like the God Emperor had slowly given up everything he fought for the good of many, and in the end took a mechanical shell so that he could keep fighting forever. Thus, while she had some augmentations, she was, in comparison to most of her creed, barely a cyborg at all. Though this impeded her advancement in the cult, none doubted her faith. She met Merlins Father while on a salvage expedition, and there was a synergy in their beliefs and an innate mutual attraction that drew them together. Rolands Father was far from a machine cultist, but he respected and understood their beliefs. He was a former Adeptus Arbite. As I mentioned them before, they support the local law enforcement and govern federal law and stuff, like in a combination of FBI and SWAT. Stylistically, they're very much like Judge Dredd. Anyway, he used to be an Adeptus Arbite, but he had seen and survived what amongst his peers was a lucrative number of operations, and he was transferred into the Inquisition and excelled there just as much, his leadership and cunning being a major boon to the fight against the evils of the Chaos Gods and various other heretical stuff. His determination earned him more fame and respect with every scar and near-death experience he survived. By the time Rolands Father had met his future wife, he'd already gotten the nickname amongst the Inquisition, "That Immortal Bastard," both for his unkillability and his tendency to be, as the trope goes, glorious bastard. Being, sneaky, can play, chess with people as the figures and everything. A cunning guy that was hard as fuck to kill. Though on their meeting he didn't have anywhere near as many cybernetics as he would later, Roland's father was astonished when he ran into a tech priest with less augmentations than him, and they ended up hitting it off well. A devout follower and emulating the God Emperor's dedication and self-sacrifice, he found her own respect for the same figure appealing. In spite of their differing faiths, she, in turn, naturally enjoyed meeting someone that shared her view of holding up the God Emperor as an example, rather than just paying shallow tribute to him like most of the Imperium tends to do. Even before marriage, Roland's mother latched onto the former Arbite as a friend and supporter, becoming somewhat like a pit crew for the team. It was her that installed the first prosthetic limb, after Rolands Father lost an arm, saving a teammate from a mad heretic's servitor press. Picture an easy-bake oven that bakes people into mindless cyborg drones. They became lovers soon after that, when she realized how much she hated seeing him badly injured. They married almost right away, and settled down on her homeworld when she got pregnant, though he was frequently away on missions. Naturally, he excelled even more since he had a wife and son to fight for, which had the drawback of getting him more missions that were more dangerous. It got to the point where he was only home for more than a few days when he lost limbs and needed time off to recover from the surgeries to put prosthetics in. When he was home, though, he was always a great and loving father, no matter how much pain he was in from the surgeries. It was this kind of home that my character Roland grew up in, surrounded by tales of the God Emperor's glory and his father's awesomeness. By the time Roland was a grown man, his father was barely even human anymore, having managed to live through so much and be so valued by the Inquisition that the man was more expensive than a small frigate, without even counting the power armor and weapons he'd earned through his actions. Only some organs, and most of his head, were still organic. About a year ago, though, something would finally take the man down for good. Betrayal. Forced to rely on a rogue trader from a criminal dynasty to complete a mission, Rolands Father was knocked unconscious when the shuttle they procured crashed. The criminal rogue trader was fast to arrive on the scene, and even faster to field strip all the tech that had been caught in the ruse. That included Rolands Father. Roland and his mother caught wind of the betrayal and resulting death not long after the Imperium found the crash. Roland was driven to a very dark place by the fact that his idol, someone so heroic and worthy, had died in such a way. His father had not just been robbed of his parts and his life, but his dignity as well. Roland doesn't speak much of the bloody vendetta that he went on, but months later he came home victorious and with the news that he was to be issued the treasonous rogue trader's warrant of trade. However, his victory was a shallow one. In his absence, his mother had cast aside her beliefs and made more and more of herself robotic, eventually becoming little more than a servitor programmed to be her. The poor woman just could not handle the pain of having her love slain in that way, and her son driven to a near-crazed, bloody war for revenge. Being welcomed with the kind words and sentiments of a mother, but none of the actual emotions they should have carried, was, of course, horrifying. And naturally Roland blamed himself. Had he chosen to stay and console his mother instead of selfishly charging off for vengeance, perhaps she would still be alive. Only the fact that his parents could be together in the afterlife kept him from snapping right then and there. Now, Roland is a rogue trader. His first mission threatens to break his resolve and shatter his sanity, as events strike too close to home, metaphorically, of course, and his drive to save an enslaved space station takes him to a dark place he swore he would never go again. Can he save the day without giving in to his vengeful side? Stay tuned for the events of the actual game, the events that pushed Roland once more to the edge of the abyss. And that's basically the background of my character. Although a large bulk of it was actually his parents leading up to his birth, and didn't actually go a huge amount into his actual life. This is the kind of family he had, and this is what sent him into a rogue trader's life, without too much detail into it. That much can be fleshed out in stories later as more of it's revealed. But yeah, more on the actual events of the game in future videos, but suffice it to say, it's as interesting as it might seem to be, as my rogue trader character is going through events that push him to the brink of stress. Was never meant to be a rogue trader, so he's a bit out of his element, with 10,000 lives relying on him. because Rogue Trader frigates are crewed by thousands of people, not just the senior crewmen that the players play. He's got 10,000 people relying on him, and he was thrust headlong into the situation well over his head and well over his level of experience. And then, as he goes deeper into what's going on, certain elements of it draw back on dark things that happened to him in his past. For instance, the evil guy responsible for taking over the station field-stripped technology from tech priests. That strikes a bit close to home. But next time we'll go, since this video is taking a bit, is getting along, I'll go into more detail about the rest of the crew and the events that led Roland up to this point where he's on the verge of possibly going back to that dark place next time. I hope you look forward to it. Feedback and thoughts about my character's background and what's going on down below. But all in all, now that all those issues that I had that I will talk about later have been addressed and basically misunderstandings cleared up and things like that, I am enjoying the game considerably, and not just because Rogue Trader is a good system and a good setting. It's a good storyline, and it's just through sheer happenstance syncing up well with my character's background and pushing my character to limits that he wasn't at before. And I'm able to take this overwhelming situation. The GM is constantly being surprised by our capacity to handle this situation that was well over our heads. It's enabling me to fully use my tactical cunning and my connivingness and my, wits to bring the most out of a Rogue Trader character. And the Armson, the Arch-Militant, is also showing a bit of a conniving side as well. And all in all, seems to be bringing out the best in the players involved. So, all in all, he must be doing something right. But more detail on that later. Comment and various other things, like hitting the like button down below. And if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. It'll help me out a lot. So this is Cheese of Ages, signing off.